So at the beginning of summer, I was getting ready to sell my art at a really big, very popular art fair about an hour and a half away from where I live. And the weather before the event said that it was supposed to be beautiful. It was stacking up to be one of the best weekends. I mean, it was supposed to be temperature-wise in the mid-80s, sunny, not much wind, so it was going to be a perfect show. And I was so excited to be able to make a lot of sales because if the weather is good, then people come out to these events because they want things to do on the weekends. All of this was making me think this was going to be a best-selling show for me, so I was excited. I decided to go ahead and bring some of the things that I would need if it rained, just in case. Because I'm in Kansas and I know this time of year, sometimes you can have a pop-up shower out of nowhere, even if the weather forecast says there's not going to be one. So my booth was all set up and prepared for the rain. But since the weather was supposed to be good, we decided to drive home each night instead of staying in a hotel. We had a sick cat at home that needed medicine, and instead of paying for a pet sitter to come multiple times to administer the medicine, we thought we would just drive home. That way we could give the medicine as needed and check on our kitty. It was only an hour and a half. I know that may sound like a long drive, but we've done drives like that before for shows because you have to go every day. So Thursday to set up, then we would drive home, then Friday to sell, and then drive home, and the same on Saturday and Sunday. So we're driving back Saturday morning. We're about an hour into the drive, and I see these really dark clouds. And like I said, I'm in Kansas, so my first thought was a tornado. So I'm checking the weather app, and it says, no, it's not a tornado, but it's a severe thunderstorm warning. I was like, well, we have to drive through this because we have to be there. The show started at 8:30 in the morning. We had no time to spare. So we had to go. We couldn't just like stop on the side of the road and wait till this storm with hail and high winds and everything passes. We have to drive straight through it. And it was a harrowing journey. I was so scared. It was one of the scariest times I've ever been in the car having to drive through the rain, but we made it. And so we got to the show and it was wet. Everything was dripping. The tent obviously had been rained on hard throughout this storm and maybe earlier pop-up showers through the night. So there were puddles of water everywhere, but my tent survived because I had buttoned everything down tight and I had my good Flourish trimline tent, which is made to withstand the rain. So everything was dry inside and I start trying to open up my booth thinking that there were going to be customers, and then more rain started. I had to leave my clear door walls down on the outside of my booth. They're a type of wall that allows customers to be able to see through so they can see that I'm open inside my booth, but it still protects the work because it's basically a clear sidewall. And then they have zipper openings in there in between different sections so customers can still walk through, but the flaps can be down, covering the work that I have on the outside of the booth. And I gotta say, I don't know how many times I've done art fairs in the rain where my booth has been the busiest in the show because customers who are walking by can see that I'm open and they can easily enter the booth and my work isn't getting damaged because the rain can't even get to it. And one tip, if you have a pop-up tent, you don't have one of the more expensive Flourish trimline dome type tents like I do, you can still have a makeshift clear door wall by getting clear shower curtains like you can see my booth neighbor did here. And you can attach them to the top of your tent underneath the roof, just to the back of it. And so that way you can have a clear door wall, which is the clear shower curtain, and people can still see through it. The alternative is using walls that come with your booth, but they're just not as good. And that's why I love my clear door walls. And I'm so thankful that I decided to put them on the booth when the weather had said that it was supposed to be perfect outside that weekend, because it really saved the show for me. Customers would walk by my booth and come in, but the problem was that they would come in with dripping wet umbrellas. More umbrellas were used at this event because the rain was considerable than I've experienced coming into my booth at any other event. And when you have 3 or 4 people who have umbrellas and they're not completely folded down, they're just like sitting in there, they're dripping on everything. My original paintings were at risk. My print bins were definitely at risk because the people were holding the umbrellas over the print bins and it was just dripping water in there. I mean, what could I do? Everybody was wet. I did try to ask people to hold their umbrellas away from the print bin so that it wouldn't drip in there. And luckily my prints are covered in polypropylene bags. These are clear plastic bags that protect the paper paper print underneath from water. But when there's a lot of water dripping in there, the whole print rack, which is made of carpeting material on the outside of it, kind of all gets damp. And I was concerned with how damp it was feeling by the touch, because literally you would touch it and you could go away with a water feel, because everybody had these ponchos on and they were dripping on it as they were looking. I was kind of concerned at how it was going to perform over time. As it turns out, though, I didn't have anything to worry about. Those clear bags on the prints really did their job, and none of my prints got damaged from the water either dripping in the print bin or being like on people's hands when they were browsing. Still, I gotta come back to the umbrellas, because man, there were so many people in my booth at one point, especially a lot of small kids, and they were bumping into everybody with their umbrellas kind of uncontrollably. I think it was mostly accidental, but they were kind of stabbing people with the ends of the umbrella that stick out. I think some of my customers didn't like it. It drove a few of them away. Plus, everybody was sopping wet, and it just wasn't a very fun shopping experience. And the rain just kept coming down harder and harder, which affected turnout at the event. Eventually, it got to the point where there were 2 solid hours of no customers coming into my booth. It was just crickets. I was sitting in there watching the rain, hoping for sales, and this is right in the prime selling time of Saturday afternoon. And as you know, if you've ever done art fairs, Saturday afternoon is pretty much the best time at any show that you do to be able to sell your art and make money. So I'm just sitting there watching the hours pass with no sales and no customers. But luckily, eventually the weather did turn around and I was able to make sales the rest of the day. And the sales on Sunday were amazing, so much so that I ended up making about $5,500 of sales throughout this entire event. So it goes to show that even if it rains at an event, and as long as it doesn't destroy any of your work and you've prepared for it in the way that you've set up your tent and everything, as long as you've done that, then you still stand a good chance at making sales. And there have been a lot of shows I've done where there's been rain, obviously not quite as much rain as was at this show, but more sporadic bursts of rain here and there where I would sell really well too. And so rain is not a sales killer completely, but you have to be prepared, because as you can imagine, if you are getting rain on original paintings, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's why I've put out the money to have the Flourish trimline tent and the clear door walls and even the awnings that are on the outside of my booth, because all of these things protect your work from the rain. And I love the awnings in particular because if it's just sprinkling a little bit, I don't have to have my clear door walls down. I can have them rolled up, and the awnings are enough to protect the work on the outside of my booth. So these are just some of the things that I've figured out over the years, but I actually have an entire video that really breaks down all the details about every single supply that I use when it's raining, so that way I have ultimate protection in my booth and help when I'm doing the setup and the teardown if rain starts to happen then. So if you want to learn some more about that, check out this video. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.